Tonight we are going to add some ribbon to our Valentine wreath. If you'll remember the last few videos that we made one video where we made a work wreath form out of a wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree and added our own pipe cleaners to it. Then the second video was where we added our base mesh using the poof method. And the third video was where we added our mesh ruffles to the base mesh. So tonight we're going to add some ribbon. I have picked out 3 ribbon combinations. So let me just show you those. I have heart with burlap lace, red with pink plaid, and pink with red plaid. When I pick out my color combinations or my ribbon combinations, I like to use contrasting colors and patterns. So I will usually put together light ribbon with dark ribbon and solids with some type of pattern. Like I did here, different patterns, the lace with the hearts and the plaid with the solids. So that's usually how I try to pick out my ribbon. So let me turn you to our wreath and we'll get started. So to get started, I am just going to go ahead and position my ties so that it's easy for me to get my ribbon on there. We're going to kind of add our ribbon in a V pattern so that once it's attached, we'll fan it out to where it kind of covers a bigger area. And we're just going to add it right on top of our ruffles. Now, as I stated in the last video, our ties are pretty long, so I am not going to have to untie my ties off of the ruffles. I can just place my ribbon right on top of it and tie it down without having to untie my ties. So we will go ahead and get started. On my inside ties, I have 6 inside ties. I cut my ribbon tails at 14 inches. I like for them to be a little longer on the insides so that it covers more area. And on the outside, I cut those ribbon tails at 12 inches because they're a little shorter. The longer you have them on the outside, the kind of stringier they look. The shorter they are, the 12 inches to me just holds its shape better. It doesn't kind of curl as much. It don't flop as much. So I use 12-inch tails on the outside, 14-inch tails on the inside. So I am going to have, for each combination, I'm going to have 2 at 14 inches for the inside because I have 3 ribbon combinations. So I'll have 2 each for the inside cut at 14 inches. Now I just kind of pinch it together in the center and I'm gonna angle it up like a little V, and I'm just gonna stick it in my tie and we're gonna twist it about twice. And then I will just kind of fan it out a little. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. I'm just trying to position it as I go, but I'm going to wind up tweaking this ribbon several times before I get finished with it. So we're just going to continue on doing the same thing. Pinch it in the center, kind of make it into a V, and then we are just going place it in the tie. Again, we want those tails pointing outward toward the outside, and I usually do my 2.5 inch and my 1.5 inch. I failed to mention that. Not only when I'm doing my combinations do I try to alternate with the colors and patterns, but I also alternate in the sizes. I always use a 2.5 inch ribbon with a 1.5 inch ribbon so that we'll make sure that all of our ribbon shows. We have the varying colors and the varying sizes, and it just really makes it all come together and look really pretty. pinch it together, make it into a V, stick it in the tie, and then if you'll notice, I'm trying to make sure that when I fan it out, I'm doing it the same every time. Like I'm starting with my 2.5 inch, fanning it out, and then my 1.5, then 2.5, and then 1.5 inch. And I'm trying to do that the same all the way around. Pinch it together, put it in a V, stick it in the tie, a 2.5, and in this case, this is a 2 inch instead of a 1.5. I usually use a 2.5 and a 1.5 inch, but sometimes I will use a 2 inch ribbon. In this case, I did. And put it in my tie. Twist it about twice. Kind of stuck. One more. Well, let me try that one again. It did not to fold right. Okay. And a V. And twist it about twice. Okay. Okay, you see how this ribbon is kind of floppy? It's trying to hang down. I'm not going to worry too much with it right now. But once I finish embellishing it out, a lot of times what I will do is I will actually kind of tack my ribbon in place with some hot glue so that it will stay where I want it to stay, and you don't have to worry about it kind of falling and flopping. So when I get to that point, what I'll do is I'll just put a little hot glue on it and actually glue it in place. Like I said, I will wait and do that toward the end when I start to embellish the wreath. Right now, I'm just trying to get the ribbon on the wreath. So that is our inside. Now remember, we cut our tails at 14 inches for the inside. And on the outside, we cut them at 12 inches. Because we want a lot of this to cover it. Because remember, this base mesh was a little thin, so you can kind of see through it. And that is why I like to go ahead and make my ribbon tails a little longer on the inside, so that the ribbon will kind of cover up some of that area so that you can't see through the wreath quite as much. Now, like I said, you can still kind of see through it now, but once we get all of our embellishments on it, get our florals and greenery, and then our backing on it, that will cover up a lot of these areas to where you can see through it. Also, if you can still see through it, I'll show you some other tricks that I like to do. Like right here, it seems kind of thin. So I will take and actually tie the ruffles together which will kind of cover up some of that where you can see through it. And what I'll do is I will actually use pieces of the mesh itself. Off that roll, you'll probably find several loose ends. Like here's a loose end right here. And I'll just pull that off the edge and actually use the strings of the mesh itself to kind of tie it together. And all that's going to do is it's just going to cover up, give it a little more coverage in there. Well, if I can get it to go in there. See how it will pull it together? Let's tie it in a knot. Well, shoot. It's going to be difficult tonight. But it's nice when you do it this way because you can't really tell that it's done. You're tying it with the mesh that you're using. So it's almost seamless. You can't even tell that it's tied. It looks like it's just bunched up together right there. And there you go. It'll give you a little more coverage. Let me get some scissors and put that off. And it's just going to give you a little more coverage. All right. So now we're going to add our base mesh. Our ribbon to the back. Now, I want to look at it and make sure that I don't line any up right behind each other. Now, you're probably going to have some that will wind up being right behind each other. But I try to alternate it the best that I can. So let me just look for a second and see if I do the hearts, then the red, and then the pink. And then the hearts, it's going to wind up right behind it. So let's see. If I do the hearts here, and then the red, and then the pink, that would be good. And then the hearts. And then the red, it's going to line up, and then the pink. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it to where it's not exactly. I could put hearts here, red, pink, hearts, red, pink, hearts, red, pink, hearts, red, pink. It's still going to be one right behind each other. So I think my best bet is probably still going to be heart here. Heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink. I think that's going to be the best bet, but that's still going to line up with a pink. I don't know, heart, red, pink, and then heart. Well, that's not exactly directly. Heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink, heart, red, pink. Okay, yeah, I think that's going to work. Heart, red, pink. I think that is going to work. There's my tie. Okay. Fan it out. Like I said, we'll tweak these ribbons several times as we go through the process. So right now I'm just really just trying to get it on the wreath. Again, these ribbon tails for the outside are 12 inches. 14 on the inside, 12 on the outside. Right now it looks kind of scrabbly, but when we get done with it, it's going to be beautiful. Alright. I like to put my wreath up on a stand like this so that I can see what it's going to look like as I'm making it. Now, usually when I'm adding my mesh, I do that down on the table. But when I'm adding my ribbon and my embellishments, I like to have it up on the stand so I can kind of see how it's coming together and how the placement is coming together as I work with it. Some of this ribbon's going to be a little difficult. We're definitely going to have to glue some of that in place. I don't know if other wreathers glue their ribbon in place or not. Maybe they are just good enough to get theirs to just lay perfectly without having to give it any persuasion. I am not that good. So I usually wind up putting a little bit of glue on my ribbon, just so to stay where I want it to stay, because I want all of my ribbon to be visible. But like I said, I usually do that toward the end once I start embellishing my wreath. Okay, so on the pink. How did you all become wreath makers? My story is that I have never had a decorating bone in my body. Been married 22 years now, and I've never had any interest whatsoever in decorating or crafting or anything like that till a couple of years ago. We built a new house. Well, it's been about 4 years now that we built the house, but in 2018 is when I really started trying to to decorate and spruce things up. But like I said, I've never been interested in it before, had never even tried to decorate before, but I decided I wanted to make a wreath for my front door. So I did that, just a simple little grapevine wreath. And my husband told me that I stayed on Facebook too much and that I needed a hobby. So I made that first wreath for my door, and I liked that pretty good. So I thought, I'll make another wreath. And soon after that, I thought, well, that one turned out pretty good, so I'll make another wreath. And then I made another one, and another one, and another one. And I just really fell in love with making wreaths. Now, I do other crafts too, but wreaths are my favorite. So that is how I got started making wreaths, is because my husband told me I needed a hobby. I needed to get off of Facebook and get a hobby. So that is what I did. I got a hobby, and then I put pictures of my hobby on Facebook. So I'm still on Facebook. But at least I don't spend all of my time on Facebook. Now part of my time is making wreaths. And he bought me a Cricut for my birthday. So now I can make other stuff too. Make some signs and stuff for my wreaths. That'll be fun once I ever learn how to use it. Okay. Getting all carried away here, trying to grab the wrong ribbon. Okay. So a few more. This ribbon, the heart ribbon, is satin. And this one right here, it's not satin, but it's a little thin too. These thinner ribbons do not hold their shape as well as the thicker, more coarse ribbons. I prefer to use coarse ribbons, but sometimes to get the look you want, you just have to use what you can find. And this is satin, so it doesn't hold its shape as good, but like I said, I'm going to glue a lot of this, kind of tack it down and in place with some glue, and that will help it hold its shape a little better too. But with the satin, sometimes your ends will curl in like that, and there's really just nothing you can do. Like I said, you can try to tack it down with some glue, and that will help some, but it's not going to be perfect. But it will help. And like I said, we are going to fluff and kind of mess with this ribbon throughout the whole process. Wind up gluing it in place, and it'll wind up being pretty. And pretty close to where we want everything to lay. And then once you add all your other stuff to it, you won't notice little imperfections in your ribbon. This red ribbon is actually velvet ribbon that I bought for Christmas time. But with solid red, you can use it for anything. And that's how I like to buy ribbon. I mean, there's very few of my ribbons are like season specific. Some of it is, and some of it is design specific. Like this is Valentine specific. But most of the ribbon that I buy, I try to buy just universal patterns that you could use with anything. Like the plaid, I could use it on Valentine or a apple wreath or a summer strawberry wreath. Just anything. Like the plains and the plaids, the solids and the plaids, you can just use those on for any occasion. And that's typically what I do. And then I'll buy one or two per season, you know, specific to the season. But most of the time, I usually just buy colors that would go with multiple seasons, patterns too. Very few, I have very few that are pattern or season specific. Most of them are just a kind of universal pattern. Okay. And that is the last of my ribbon. And here you go. Let's see if you can see it. Isn't that pretty? Just think how beautiful it's going to be once we get everything on it. So this is our ribbon. Like I said, we'll fluff and tweak and play with this ribbon a lot more before we get finished with it. But for right now, that looks pretty good. And we will do a separate video where we will add our embellishments. I still don't really know exactly how I want to embellish it out, so I'll be thinking about that in the meantime. So for now, that's how you put ribbon on your wreath. And until next time, bye.